Welcome back to our Knowledge Shared series with Alex from the recruiter's perspective. And I have just enjoyed it so much talking with you already. We started with the job market and what does that look like in your first session. And I'm just excited to get into this. We are looking at how companies can attract talent. And I think this is really important. And I think that if we just can figure this out as an industry, then we're going to be attracting the right people and keeping them in our industry, which I think is really important. So how can companies, focus on attracting better talent?
Yeah, I think it's the question of the year, if you will. It's something that many companies are struggling with, and particularly in the manufacturing sector, but certainly within the pumps industry more specifically. I would say that it's a real challenge because I qualify manufacturing in general as a ugly duckling industry. What I mean by that is when young people go to college, they don't think, oh, I'm going to have a career in pump manufacturing, right? They think, oh, I want to be, a social influencer, or I want to
Yeah.
work for Netflix or
Well, I was
Google.
going to say, not yet. We're really working on that. I hope one day they do go to college and be like, I am going to be in the pump industry. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be amazing. And I hope that that happens. And hopefully the advice that I can share with you today is going to help companies get one step closer to that. And really, in order to answer the question of, how do you effectively attract the top talent? Meaning, look, what can your organization truly do to stand apart, not only from other companies in your field, but other industries as well? Because as we talked about last time, people have a great deal of choice. Remote work possibilities through the roof right now. And so how do you attract that top talent into a sector that traditionally is not on everybody's radar? Well, I think the first step that you have to take is really step back and think, what is it that people consider when they are contemplating whether to take a position with a particular company, or the likelihood that they feel favorably about your company in general. And there are many, many different things that come to mind. So for example, I've listed a few here: the company leadership, your news releases and how you come across on social media, the culture, compensation and benefits, certainly a big part of it, the management team, vision, mission, values, the industry that you're in, the products that you serve the industry with. And, it's interesting because a lot of times many people will place, I think, a great deal of emphasis on certain things that don't actually make a huge difference as attractors of talent. For example, if you look at culture. Now, culture is obviously a very important element of every organization. But when it comes to talent attractiveness, based on the research that I've done, culture is actually not one of the top factors considered. And why? Because culture is something that you have to live. You can't just be promised a lot of fancy things and these promises about a great work environment and good work-life balance. You need to experience that for yourself in order to tell whether or not a company's culture is good. So I would say that culture is very important in terms of onboarding. It's very important in terms of retention, but it's not as critical in terms of driving people to your doors as candidates. And you can almost think about culture as hygiene, if you will. So, with the communication on social media platforms, with Glassdoor, with all of the ways that employees of a company can communicate about their organization, having a good culture that respects its employees and has a good work-life balance and gives people opportunity for advancement is basically the norm. It's the baseline, if you will. Because if you have it, then people that come and interview with you will say, well, yeah, every company should offer that to their employees. They should treat people fairly. They should give them plenty of opportunities to get ahead and to perform well. It's when you don't have a good culture that you get absolutely lit up on all of these platforms, right? And it almost reeks on you the way that lack of personal hygiene would. So I would say culture is absolutely critical, but not when it comes to attracting people. What we've seen through a lot of years of experience of talking to candidates, and we have over 100,000 candidates that we've talked to, 700,000 conversations that we've had just in the last 10 years alone. So we understand what motivates people, and there are 4 key pillars that we've come to realize that make a huge difference in terms of attracting people to your organization. And the really sad part about this is that most companies don't treat these pillars with the respect and the onus that they deserve. What I mean by that is most companies still have the mindset of, well, I'm an established brand. I've been in business for a really long time. I make a lot of money. And so people should want to come and work for me. But the reality is, in this labor market, as I showed you last time, very different from what we had even just a couple of years ago, companies need to treat their attracting talent as a sales and marketing function within the organization. You no longer need to ask your candidates to give you a 10 to 15-second elevator pitch about why they're the right person for you. You've got to be able to do something like that about your business to the people that are coming to work for you. And the key elements to focus on are the markets in which you operate, the products that you use to serve those markets, the team that you have assembled, and what the mission of your company is beyond making money. So let's look at these in just a couple of different ways. First and foremost, markets. I think it's really important to highlight that markets aren't static. They move and they change and they evolve over time. So to the average Joe, they might not know anything about pumps, but they might not know the fact that with pumps, you get to use great computer software and you get predictive analytics and you get to use the latest technology, and it's part of Industry 4.0. And it's all this high-tech glitz that typically is associated with, the Amazons and the Apples of the world, but it does exist in something like pumps, manufacturing, distribution, the end use cases. It is an interesting industry. You can push the market forward, and it's something where someone can really grow in terms of their technical skills, in terms of their knowledge of various processes, whether that's discrete or process automation, in all sorts of elements, that it can be a sexy industry to be a part of. But of course, very few people actually talk about it as being as such, unless you're talking with a bunch of your industry peers at a conference, right? So I think element number 1 is sell the glitz of the industry to the potential candidate. Because for commonplace positions like sales or engineering, right, they can go work in many different sectors. But how do you attract them to pumps? Well, you got to make a compelling argument for why pumps are sexy. And that's an important piece of the conversation. The second thing is the products that you address the market with. And what I mean by that is you really have to help people see with clarity why coming to work for your business with your solutions, both hardware and service offering, is going to help them win in this marketplace. What is it that makes you different than all of your competitors? Why is it that you have had success over the years? And if you're able to get them to buy into this notion of we really are unique and we have a way to address the market that our competitors can't, then they're going to want to come and work for you. The third thing, team, is probably the most underappreciated. So when you think about young people in particular, but this applies to those in the mid to late stages of their careers too, we want to associate ourselves with winners. We want to go into an organization where people have a proven track record of success. And companies do a very poor job of highlighting their wins to potential candidates. We've seen this time and time again. So you have to help people understand, look at this team that we've assembled. You're going to be coming into an environment where they've achieved great things over the years. You're going to be part of this winning formula that has allowed us to gain market share and increase our footprint in many, many different ways and accomplish all of these different objectives that we have for the organization. But it's because of the people that we have assembled that you're going to be able to do that. And don't you want to associate yourself with winners? They're going to be able to not only build a foundation of a network for you for the remainder of your career, but they're going to be that launch pad for you to success because they're proven winners from a historic perspective. And I see very few companies effectively taking that message to potential candidates. And then the last element here, mission, I think particularly once again highlights the need to stress this fact to the younger generations, Gen Z, millennials in particular. If you look at what they care about, it goes beyond money. They want to understand what your company does that makes the world a better place. Do you provide, clean drinking water to societies all around the globe? Do you facilitate, the use of growing plants that feed people? They want to know, yes, I understand centrifugal pumps, positive displacement pumps, all of that is great, but what do you actually do that helps society get better? And companies have typically a mission statement, but it's not very adequate at conveying to people why they are a contributor to the good in the world. And I've seen some really great examples of this. For example, when you think about what motivates engineers, right? Engineers are typically motivated by solving challenging problems. 3M is a company that hires a lot of engineers, and their mission statement is, we solve the world's challenges in an innovative way, right? That really directly talks to what those people care about. And they have that as part of their hiring mantra. They advertise that concept when they put up job postings. And it really goes a long way in attracting candidates, the kind of candidates that they want into their doors. So try to do the best job you can at crafting a message and treat it as a sales and marketing function, as I mentioned earlier, in taking this message through your job postings, to your website, to anytime that you have a chance to interact with potential employees, and tell them the story of not only why they would want to work for you, but who they can become by working for you. And that makes a real difference in attracting people to your organization. So that's the first side of the coin of attractiveness, is you have to change your behavior as a hiring authority and really make this be more of a marketing pitch than a traditional, oh, well, you should want to come and work for me kind of situation. The flip side of that coin is you really have to put in a lot of effort in understanding what motivates people to actually say yes to the job. And what I mean by that is you have to ask the right questions, you have to listen to what people respond with, and then you actually have to incorporate that information into the way that you have conversations with candidates. So we use a term called CLAMPS to achieve this objective. CLAMPS is an acronym that stands for challenge, location, advancement, money, people, and security. And every time we reach out to a new candidate and have an engaging conversation with them, we ask them to fill out a CLAMPS profile. It's very simple. We just ask them, please rank these in the order of importance from 1 to 6. What is the most important thing to you? And it's fascinating how different the responses are, based on age, based on industry, based on the position that's being talked about. So, for example, we talked about challenge being an attractive element to engineers in various industries. Well, I'll give you one guess what salespeople find the most lucrative and the most attractive. Yes, you guessed it, it's money. If you look at age differences, mid to late career people really care about location and security of the job, whereas younger people care about advancement and people. Money oftentimes falls in the bottom half of the priorities for those aged underneath the family formation age, which today is about 30, right? So if you're looking at young people in their 20s, they understand that money will come. Right now, they're focused on how do I surround myself with a very powerful network, and how do I give myself the best opportunity for advancement? Those are the big drivers for them. So once you have a candidate's profile in terms of what their CLAMPS rankings are, then you can tailor the conversation with that person to specifically focus on the things that they are most interested in. It becomes not just the same conversation over and over and over again, like it is in most companies' hiring practices, but rather a tailored approach for each candidate that makes themselves feel valued, and they feel understood, and they feel like, wow, this company is really the right place for me. And the best way that I've seen this implemented is actually the US Army. So when you go into a recruiting office, you're typically asked to fill out a basic simplified version of something like this. And then the recruiter goes into the back room, they read through what you wrote, and they use that information to convince you to commit to 20 years of your life to military service, right? So it works, but you have to ask, you have to listen, and then you have to incorporate the feedback into the conversation. Companies can do that effectively, see a significant improvement in the attractiveness, the pull that they have to candidates coming in for interviews within their organization. So I would summarize my long-winded answer once again into two things. Number one, treat your talent attraction exercises as marketing, sell the business to the candidates and understand what is important to them, and then use that understanding to engage in much more dynamic, much more interesting and thriving conversations than just going through the repetitive rigmarole that you've always done. So I hope that answers your question, Charlie. And I hope that companies listen to this advice and actually start implementing, because clamps, for example, is such an easy process. It doesn't take much to write 6 words on a piece of paper and ask people to put numbers next to them, right? And yet so few people do it.
Yeah, I think this is such a great tool. And just thinking through, like, how do we want to be seen out in the world? So that sales and marketing aspect of, attracting the right people for your team, but not being so arrogant to think, okay, we're the best, come work for us, and really put your perspective on, let's get to know that person. What do they need? Are they the right fit? I think is really wonderful tools that you've given them once again. And so everyone, this is the second in our series, and we'll be back where we talk about hiring best practices. So once you do get the talent in the door, what are you going to do with them? So I'm looking forward to that too, Alex.
Me too. Looking forward to it.